Welcome to episode 194 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Chris Colucci. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by Chris Colucci. Chris, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you.
I'm glad we finally had a chance to meet up and say hey.
Another classic example of people that you interact with online and like kind of tangentially so, and never really met, but it's kind of clear to me anyways that we're more or less on the same wavelength about a lot of things, and the internet allows us to meet, so this is great.
It is. Internet friends are real friends.
This is true. This is true. Chris, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, let the listeners know who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. I got into fitness and training by way of martial arts way back in the day, in like high school, junior high era. I was into martial arts. That led into exercise, lifting weights, trying to gain weight. I was tall and skinny as a teenager. I eventually got certified back when I was like 21, which is a minute ago. I was a trainer for about a decade, worked with all sorts of clients, athletes, regular folks, just everybody. From there, I got into more the writing and editing side. I worked on a couple of websites, writing articles, editing articles from strength coaches. And recently I kind of just got back into the training world and getting my feet wet and working with people.
In your worldview, what has changed, if anything, in the gap of you kind of being more on the writing side? I mean, you're obviously still involved in fitness, but is there anything different that you think is coming up, or different types of questioning, or different struggles maybe that people are dealing with in terms of their training in between that little gap?
I think really recently, the last couple of years, it really is just information overload has gotten so bad. Because the internet is great because you can ask a question and get a million answers. But the internet is terrible because you can ask a question and get a million answers.
Right.
So just whatever it is, whether it's an exercise question, whether it's what diet should I do, how should I eat, there's every answer out there, and it's just too much to deal with. Like less information can kind of force you to just try something. And I think that's like trial and error has kind of gone by the wayside. Like people want an answer, the answer. But there's no the answer. You have to try stuff and see what works, see what clicks. You know, you've got to put the time in, whatever you're trying to figure out.
100% agreed with that. I think, a caveat to thinking that there's too much information out there, like you and I and many other people are both people who put out more information. And so we're adding in a way to this like information overload. But the other side of that is there's also so much crappy information. And in addition to like the legitimately bad information, there's information that is like kind of said in absolutes that is not necessarily wrong, but maybe not applicable to every single person. And then so if people weren't putting out good content, there would be just that would be the only thing that would exist, and they're going to continue to do it. So it's like we almost, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we almost have a responsibility to continue to put out more content, put out good content as best as we can to further the conversation, so that we're adding to the information soup, but there's going to only be bad ingredients if good people aren't putting stuff out there as well.
That's exactly it. It's the old rock soup thing where everybody adds a little something as it goes. But the more good content you have from good trainers and qualified, credentialed trainers, just the better people are going to stumble upon that good information, rather than asking a random question on social media and getting what sounds like an intelligent, well-thought-out reply from somebody who has no business answering the question. It's that bad information that sounds convincing, which is the dangerous stuff.
Right. Or it's an answer to a question in a given context or scenario that is not the same as the scenario that the original person is looking for. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I'm a whatever XYZ avatar of person asking a question, it's not the same as someone else. And something that you and I wanted to talk about that I think it's a good time to just bring up and get started with is the training splits, is a question that I see asked far too often. And it's almost confusing to me, like, what training split should I do? And I always thought, like, it's just a schedule. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, there's not a best one. Like, you're getting your stuff in during the week, and like, however you want to split it up is like pretty okay. And unless you're a super high level athlete, Probably doesn't really matter all that much. But what's your take on training splits?
Yeah, again, it's overthought. It's a big question that everyone wants to know. I need to start training, so what do I do every day? It's a fair question on the surface. I think it really gets kind of ties back to like a lot of people, whether they know it or not, kind of approach training and approach the gym like a bodybuilder, like a competitive bodybuilder, and that's really not appropriate for a lot of people. Like competitive bodybuilders train to build maximum muscle size and minimize body fat, which generally a lot of people want more muscle and less fat. But the way they go about it, not even going to mention steroids and stuff, that's a whole can of worms. But the way competitive bodybuilders approach with a body part split, where I go in today and it's chest day, I go in today and it's arm day, that's good for some people, but it's not practical for a lot of people. If you work 50 hours a week and you have kids' basketball games on the weekends and you have date night every Wednesday night, you might not be able to get to back day because something comes up. And then that week, I didn't train back. So it's 14 days until I train back. So when you get that specific and that kind of fine-tuned, it doesn't really mesh with a lot of people's practical, realistic schedules, which is why I'm generally a fan of like upper-lower splits or push-pull or full body. Everyone should do full body. Full body training is not just for beginners. I hate that myth. But yeah, so it really ties back to like the bro split, the body part split. A lot of people expect that they should be doing it, but it might not be and probably isn't the best choice for the majority of people in the gym, almost regardless of goal.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I mean, I think that one simple way to even combat the changing of schedule is that you just do it on a rolling basis, as in like a next workout up, rather than every Wednesday is back day.
Right.
Then you just do like, well, my next workout is back, whether that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is, but we're creatures of habit as humans, and we don't do that. And everyone knows that you put leg day on the day where you're not going to make it to the gym, so that you have an excuse to skip leg day for months in a row. Because like, oh, Thursdays are just like, jam packed, and I just can't make it in for leg day. But you never miss chest day, and everyone knows that. And so, but just simply doing it as like a next workout up would combat that. But then again, you run into the training problem of like, well, maybe because there's so many missed days in between due to work and regular life, you end up not training a body part for 2.5 weeks. Aside from the jokes of skipping leg day, you might miss back day for 2 weeks because you just like haven't made it in time, versus full body workouts, like you're not missing anything ever. And it's like pretty solid for most people.
Right. And then it also ties into like efficiency. Like I've seen a lot of people online on social where their primary goal is fat loss, just body composition, but they'll have a buy and try day. They'll have an arm day. And that's almost a wasted workout. Like arm day is super easy. It's the hardest arm day you could possibly do. It's not that hard, all things considered.
Right.
So if your goal is body composition and you're spending 45 minutes training biceps and triceps, that could be a much better use of time training bigger muscle groups, getting more bang for your buck when you're in the gym. So that's kind of another drawback to a body part split that ties into a little bit more goal specific. You need to make sure you're doing the most you can to work towards your actual goal, always.
Especially when we consider like what the actual point of lifting weights is. Like I think people still conflate working out with burning fat. And while it's true because you expend calories by working out, you also expend calories doing literally everything else that you would ever do. And so if you're going into the gym with the primary goal of losing body fat and you're doing bis and tris, you don't lose more fat by doing that. Your goal with lifting weights is to like grow the strength and or size of that muscle. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, you're also eating less food in some form or fashion. And so your ability to grow muscle is actually inhibited by the fact that you're trying to lose weight. And so what are you really accomplishing by getting that bis and tris workout in while you're in a weight loss phase. And so I think once we say it out loud like this, I hope it sounds really obvious that like why someone shouldn't be doing this. But I also understand why someone who's brand new to the gym wouldn't necessarily think that. You just like an arms day sounds like a normal thing to do. It's probably something people have heard in the media and in magazines and, from other people at the gym. And so I get it, but like maybe the thing is we just got to stop and think about what we're actually doing a little bit. But that, that does take a little bit of effort, and it's not always easy.
No, well, it's not easy. That's why you need to go in with a good plan and not a half-cocked plan of maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll hope this works.
How do you then help people like organize their workouts in such a way where they understand that, hey, my primary goal is fat loss and like body recomposition. So why do I need to lose weight? I don't care about getting stronger. I don't care about having bigger muscles, and I'm trying to lose weight. Why do I care about workouts then? Why do I care about lifting weights? How do you help bridge that gap?
I just saw, like a couple hours ago, I saw a thing that I reposted on Threads, where we talk a lot. Another trainer was explaining to their client the benefits of training for muscle preservation and muscle growth and stuff. They said you can either, they were talking like cardio versus lifting weights. Where do you invest your time? And they broke it down that you could either ask for a $5 bonus or a $1 an hour raise, and which is going to get you closer to happiness, which is going to be better for you in the long run. So, strength training is generally better for you in the long run. A good, comprehensive, thorough weight training workout, not like an arm pump. So it's all goal focused. Figure out your exact goal, what you want to achieve. And then I like figuring out the time you have to achieve it. Again, it ties back to what's your realistic schedule. Can you get to the gym 4 days a week? Is your schedule so tight you can only get there guaranteed 3 days a week? 4 would be nice. Because if we set the framework of the plan that all you have to do is workout A, workout B, workout C, you're good for the week. I'd rather know that and plan everything around that than plan on 5 days a week you're going to be in the gym, but something came up, and so then you're hitting like 70% consistency, which is not great. So
when the end result would be maybe the same. It's like you're aiming, quote unquote, for that 5 days, and you realistically get in 3 days. Then you kind of feel bad because you're like not hitting your goals. You're like, you're missing days. But if you just set out to hit 3 days, I mean, the result of work is the same amount.
Yeah.
But you'll feel good about actually achieving like the schedule that you set out for yourself. And I think that's a big part of it too. It's just like making, ambitious but achievable goals.
Definitely. Achievable is huge because that's gonna improve motivation, improve your consistency. You're hitting good in the gym, so you're gonna instinctively try better in the kitchen. So you're gonna support your good training with better nutrition. Low bars, get over low bars often, and the high bars are easier.
It's so true. I mean, in theory, if you think about it, like when you're not hitting it in the gym is when you should be like a little bit more dialed in the kitchen and with your nutrition and all that stuff, because, you don't have that other thing to kind of like, back you up. But most often, and I'm for sure guilty of this as well, is like when you're not hitting the gym, it's when you're also just kind of being lazy on nutrition, kind of let your sleep slip. You're just like, it's just a deload. And just like, I'm just going to kind of like let everything go for a little bit. But it's like the backwards of what we should actually be doing, right?
Right.
So then full body workouts. I think people have a hard time trying to program this. And so, and just because like, you think about going in to do chest, you do your flat bench, you do your incline press, and then you do dips, and then you do flies, and then you do whatever, all the chest exercises all in one day. And then full body is like, well, I only do one chest exercise. Like, how does that work? So how do you go about programming full body workouts? How do you think about it?
Full body training, in its broadest sense, is there's a lot of ways to interpret it. Like there's the classic like circuit training where every body part has a machine, and so there's 12 exercises to hit back and chest and shoulders and arm, biceps and triceps and abs and quadriceps and hamstrings and calves, and you just do a little full body circuit. But that's not the only full body training. If I do front squats and chin ups that's a full body workout. I trained upper body and lower body. We could dial it another level down and say, well, you want an upper body push and upper body pull and a squat variation and a hinge. Okay, so that's front squat, dips, chins, and swings. Full body workout also. Or, push-ups and lunges and pulling a sled, like whatever. Like full body training is a kind of a category, and there's lots of ways to approach it. And it depends on like how much time you have for a workout. If front squats and chins, that could be a 15-minute workout. You're done. Knock it out, and you did good. Or you could do, a deadlift and a shoulder press and whatever, and end with some arms, and with a bicep tricep superset, because arm training can be part of a full body workout. You don't have to skip it.
I think that's part of the key there, is that a full body workout or full body training doesn't mean that you have to train every single body part to failure to like maximal volume every single time you go to the gym, because that would be a 3-hour workout at least every single time you were in the gym, and also just not an efficient way to work out. Like you can't push hard for 15 different exercises, times 2 to 5 sets or whatever. It's just impossible, right? So you can break it up over the week, and maybe you're not hitting every part of your body, but you can hit most of them in a workout, like you're saying. You pick big exercises, big compound exercises, bicep or front squats and chin ups. Like you're doing a number on a lot of things there. Sure, you're not. There's obviously some things that are missed, but then the next day might be bench press and RDLs, something like that, right? Where you're hitting the opposite sides. I actually really like that, like kind of upper push, lower pull. And you classify like the hinge as the pull, the squat pattern, quad dominant stuff as a push for lower body. And I think people seem to like it too. And I don't know about you, but anecdotally, there's also more of like it sounds like a buzzword to say this, but like a metabolic effect where if we're talking about like body composition, like you're getting your heart rate up a little bit more and stuff. So if you like programming like that, can you talk a little bit about that and how we can kind of use different muscles groups where like your front squats don't really affect your chin-ups and your chin-ups don't really affect your front squats. So you can train them both kind of together, but both intensely at the same time.
Yeah, well, the intensity is a thing, because a lot of people also think, I have to slack because I can't squat heavy if I'm doing, 3 of the body parts. But you can, because, ring dips shouldn't affect your back squat that much. If they do, that's on you. Fix it. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of supersets or trisets or giant sets. We used to call them Weider principles. Essentially circuits. They're all circuit variations. It's just efficiency. It's more time efficient. I tell clients that you're fitting more workout into your workout. If I have you for an hour, you're going to work for an hour. So it's not going to be 2 minutes between sets. It's going to be, okay, put the bar down, go there and do something else now. It could be, it could be abs, it could be a body weight exercise, a lower intensity, but something to keep you moving, have that active recovery, or actively start another body part. Like we said, the front squats and chin-ups. You can hit both of those hard, and it's not really going to affect one or the other.
So in the internet world, one of the things that has kind of caught fire, I think, in the past couple of years in training is this idea of like resting very long between sets, which I think we both know has like a ton of merit and is a valuable tool and all that stuff. But something that you just said, and kind of we're both kind of getting around here, is like you don't need to rest 5 minutes between every single set every single time. And in fact, sometimes it's like counterproductive, because how much time are you going to spend in the gym versus like, can you just put another exercise in there that is not actually affecting your recovery? So have you seen people like make less strength gains by supersetting not opposing exercises, like something like squats or chin-ups and front squats, something like that? Have you seen people like get less strong at their squats because they're doing chin-ups in between or something like that?
Not in the long term. In the short term, when their conditioning is primarily a limiting factor, because they're just out of breath, because they're not used to doing thing after thing after thing, once they adapt and once their body gets used to, all right, I'm going to have to build strength endurance, I'm going to have to recover faster, I'm just going to have to get up and go. Once they get over that hurdle, it's not a limiting factor. You can squat heavy. You can do stuff. It's a more athletic form of training. It's a more functional form of training. There's no other word for it.
Right. No, I know what you mean.
It is. I mean, like you look at CrossFit athletes, those are predominantly full body workouts for the most part. Look at strongman competitors. A lot of times it's full body type workouts. Not so much power lifters or Olympic lifters, so they're much more niched, much more fine-tuned exercise, limited exercise menu. Look at mainstream sports. A lot of times, strength and conditioning coaches are not doing body part splits because it's just a more athletic approach, and it does not affect performance in the long run. In the short term, it sucks because you're out of breath and you sweat more, but that's okay. It's a workout. So
it's not supposed to tickle.
No.
But this also comes back to what you were saying earlier about how people, whether they know it or not, are training like bodybuilders, where a bodybuilder's primary focus is maximizing hypertrophy. And that is both by the way that they work out and everything that they do outside of the gym, which the average person listen to this, and 99% of people in the world are not trying to do that. Like, you think you're trying to grow muscle, like you're not maximizing hypertrophy based on the way that you're living your life, unless you're a professional bodybuilder. You want to get a little bit bigger muscle, and you can do that without taking every single set to failure and resting 5 minutes between sets. Like, you don't need that to grow a little bit of muscle. You might need that to be Mr. Olympia, but if you're not that, you don't need that. And this is where things get conflated, right? Is like we learn from the top of whatever. The same as people say, like, I watched my favorite football player do this workout, or my favorite hockey player do this workout. You're not in the NHL or in the NFL. Like, you probably don't need that, but you need something that maybe more resembles that, because that's probably more what you want to be able to do, be able to run, be able to jump, be able to bend down and, do stuff, right?
Yeah.
So building off all of this, we talk about supersets and the ways to make things more efficient. It's also a really tough thing for many people to do in a commercial gym setting, because you can't use too many pieces of equipment. The gym's busy. There's 100 people in there, and there's only one machine of whatever you need. What are some tips that you have on how to set up a superset so that it is possible to do 2 or 3 or more exercises in a circuit fashion in a regular commercial gym?
Well, the easiest answer is calisthenics, body weight stuff. You can do squats, lunges, push-ups, push-up variations, things like that. Requires no equipment, requires the same footprint you're already standing in. So if you're doing whatever upper body exercise, you can alternate it with a lunge variation, a single leg squat if you're more advanced, a traditional body weight air squat if you're a relative beginner, so that can still be challenging. If you're doing any kind of lower body weight training, free weights or whatever, alternate it with some push-ups. Get down and knock out some close grip push-ups, some wide grip, some single arm, biased stuff. Run real quick to the chin-up bar, knock out 3 chin-ups, 2 chin-ups, whatever. Doesn't have to be to fatigue. It's doing a little something. So body weight is always going to be the first choice. And dumbbell stuff is the next best choice, because you can just carry a pair of dumbbells to the leg press machine. Do a leg press, do a bent dumbbell row. Do your deadlifts, do dumbbell shoulder press. You're not taking up extra space. You're not hogging the weights. Like, nobody needs to be self-conscious. You're allowed to share weights. If somebody wants to work in with people. That's fine. So those are the two easiest ways to fit it in. I've seen training programs recommend, coaches write articles recommending supersetting 3 barbell exercises in a gym. And that's not going to happen. That trainer is working with clients in a private facility.
Right.
Nobody's going to a commercial gym and doing 3 barbell exercises in a circuit without getting yelled at the least. So,
and in that case, kind of rightfully so.
For sure.
That's a little much.
For sure. So it's realistic. It's what's practical. Body weight stuff, dumbbell stuff, you're good.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think the dumbbell thing, bringing it over to a machine is is easily one of the biggest, or maybe just the body weight stuff, even if it's just core with something that's just requires floor space. And you're right, like the whole like not working in with people thing in the gym. I don't know if this was like, I think it's because of COVID, honestly, and just people being apart and whatever, because pre-COVID, I don't remember anyone like, I don't remember this being an issue where people were afraid to like share a piece of equipment or like, hey, we will use the same pair of dumbbells and I'll give them to you when I'm resting. And cause like most of the time in the gym, you're not actually working out. You're actually just resting and hanging out. And so it was never an issue. And then all of a sudden after COVID, it's like, this is, you know, we don't share stuff. Like, sure, you can wipe it down, and I get the hygienic aspect of it, but like, I think we need to all get over ourselves a little bit and over our personal space. And especially if you're going to like a commercial gym at 5:30 in the afternoon, like it's normal to just ask people to work in, and you shouldn't be scared to ask people, because I think most people will say yes if you ask them. I think people are just like afraid to want to do it. But then the alternative to that is, well, I couldn't get my workout in because the gym was busy. So it's like, you know, muster up a little bit of courage just to ask that big guy at the gym, or, you know, don't get your workout in and then complain about why you're not getting results. Like you got to pick your poison here a little bit, right?
For sure. It's not that hard. It's talking to people, it's okay to do that.
Yes, it can be scary, but talking to people is okay to do that. So supersets help us be more efficient in the gym, because we don't all need to be there for so long and every single day. Anything else that you have, in the toolbox that helps things be more efficient, or ways for people to think about making their workouts a little bit more time efficient?
I'm also really a fan of like literally watching the clock with like EMOM sets every minute on the minute. Because if you can only train for 30 minutes, then you do a 15-minute EMOM, and after 15 minutes, you're done. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. And then you have 15 minutes left to train. You can do a 10-minute EMOM, you're done. Then squeeze in 5 more minutes, and you're done. So every minute on the minute, or every 30 seconds on the 30 seconds, like that format is great, because it forces you to be strict. It forces you to watch the clock and be focused, which is the biggest thing. Like you're watching the second hand, and when it hits 12, you go. That's it. That's your job.
And what's the trade-off here? So there's a reason, like not everyone trains like that,
right?
And so what are people giving up if they're going to train like that? Like time is the biggest factor for sure, because if you got work and kids and life, like you're not going to be like, oh, well, fuck all the stuff in my life. Like I got to train for, 2 hours every day. Like that's not realistic. So you got 30 minutes, you're doing the EMOM thing. What are you giving up, or what should you expect to maybe not happen in terms of like progress or growth if you're doing some training like that, if anything?
Kind of by the way it's structured, like EMOM is probably relatively lower volume. So like it depends on how many reps you can fit in, how many exercise, what exercise you're doing, like whatever. Like if you're doing, I don't know, EMOM swings, you might get like 30 reps in a minute. You might get 40 reps in a minute. But if you're doing like a power clean, you might just do doubles. You might get 2 reps, and you need that 45 seconds to rest. So you can't always get a ton of volume. So that will be a factor in, how do you monitor intensity? What is your weekly frequency for that type of motion going to look like? So that will affect like muscle growth to an extent, strength gains to an extent, depending on how you balance. It's all about balancing volume and intensity. So if you're a little bit lower intensity, you need to push harder on those go sets. And you can play around. Like again, you can play around with EMOM for like Olympic weightlifting does it for singles and doubles, maybe a triple, and then you have the rest of the minute to recover. If you want to push hard on like a Metcon workout, you're going to do something where you can get double-digit reps, and then you rest whatever time it is, and then you go again. So you can play around with it a little bit.
One thing you said there that I want to zero in on is the volume and intensity kind of being like inversely proportional to one another, where it's like lower reps means higher intensity, and vice versa, higher reps, lower relative intensity. But I think what's missed there is that high rep sets, 15, whatever. It doesn't, when we say like use light weights for high reps, it's like lightweights compared to what? Like, you should still be training hard. Like, your 15th rep of a 15 rep set shouldn't be like a 3 out of 10 level of effort. Like, it should still be, it should still be like a 9 out of 10 level of effort. It's just obviously you can't lift the same weight that you can lift for 15 reps that you would lift for 2 reps. That's ridiculous. But we have to, like, your intensity should almost always be high. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, relatively to what you are. Like a 15 rep to failure barbell curl is not fun. Like, it's not terrible, like we said before, but it's still reaching muscular failure, and it takes work, and it's hard to get to, and you kind of don't want to a couple of reps before. Like, good enough, not good enough. No. So hitting failure or approaching fatigue is still almost mandatory. It's still a huge factor to trigger the stimulus that you want to trigger.
So I think that as people kind of evolve through their training career, when people are really new, they'd rather not lift like heavier things and they'd rather go higher reps. And then as you progress, like, very quickly, it transitions to like, no, like more than 8 reps. Like, what are we doing? Running a marathon here? Like, I just want to, like, I'd rather lift heavier and like get this over with. I don't want to feel that burn for 15 reps. Like, that's preposterous, right?
Right.
Now on that note, like, as we progress through our training career and just age in general, are there any considerations? Of course, time becomes a bigger factor because typically as you get older, like, you just have more things going on in your life. You have more things to be responsible of. Certainly, I hope when you're like 40, you have more things to be responsible of than when you're, 17, right? So there's more stuff to consider. So training time is certainly, and training efficiency is certainly a big consideration. Any other major considerations for people who are aging and have maybe more responsibilities, or just like their physical body is aging in training?
Yeah, well, that's really the biggest thing, is just wear and tear. If you've been in the gym lifting 4 days a week for 15 years, that's a lot of movement. That's a lot of cartilage stress. So you can't always sometimes, can't always train the same at 47 that you did at 27. That might mean exercises are off the menu. Like, you might just, like, the big 3, the flat barbell bench press, the barbell back squat, and the conventional deadlift, you might not ever do those again. So I'm sorry. Wrap your head around it. It's not good for you. Maybe. Like, I'm not painting with broad brushes, but this is the mindset you need to have. You need to be okay with not doing these tried and true exercises, because if they cause more strain and more actual pain than benefit, why are you doing them? Because you're supposed to? Habit? Like, that's not a good enough reason. That's not persuasive. Switch to a front squat, switch to a safety bar squat, switch to a trap bar deadlift, switch to dumbbell presses, switch to dips. Like, comparable effective alternatives are fine. As you gain years in the mileage, as you rack up mileage on the chassis, you have to adjust. That's probably the biggest thing. It's just exercise selection that accounts for you as an individual, what you can and can't do, not what you want to do or used to do.
I always think of this as a bit of a give and take, because in theory, if we're training well, taking care of our bodies properly, like, we should be able to move. Now, your strength might decline and maybe your numbers might go down, but you should still be able to move and do all the things. However, the other side of this is, like, we don't all move, quote unquote, optimally in terms of like our biomechanics. You will pick up injuries from either in the gym or just like regular life. You fall, you trip and fall, like, things happen. And so your hip is just kind of, a little wonky and whatever. And then again, you're not a professional bodybuilder or professional athlete. Are you really rehabbing those little injuries and these little like nicks and stuff that you get? Are you really rehabbing them like totally? Probably not, because it's not your job. You get it to the point where it's like, doesn't bother me when I get out of bed anymore. So like, it's fine. But if I barbell back squat, then like my hip is going to be acting up for 2 weeks. Right. And so it's just this trade-off of like, hey, yeah, we want to be like movement optimists, I think, and try and move well and be able to do all of the things. But at some point you got to just realize like, hey, I'm not actually going to take the time and effort to make this stuff happen, and I'm not going to be a gymnast or a contortionist and be able to do all these crazy things with my body. And so maybe I just got to give some exercises up. But this is when we got to think about like, hey, what's a comparable movement, like you were saying? And there's no best exercise. The only necessary exercises are the big 3 exercises if you are a competitive powerlifter.
Right.
Other than that, like nothing is explicitly necessary.
Oh, 100%. And that also, adjusting to your new normal, your capabilities, that also ties into like your goals. Like if you've always wanted to bench 405, but you're 46 years old and you're benching 275, I would bet money it's not going to happen, and I'm sorry. So it's in your best interest to accept it and stop chasing it, because you're just going to run your head into a wall, probably end up with a bigger injury than necessary, and just because. That's like you always wanted to drive a Lamborghini, but not everyone gets to. So make your goals realistic. Right. And assess what you can actually do and why you're going after it.
Right. And things like that. It's like benching 405 is incredibly rare. Right. Like most people who train their whole life will still never do that. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, you may pick a goal and maybe that's a bit of an outlier of a thing, but it's like you have to understand what it actually takes to get that goal. Like you see a guy on Instagram bench 405, but you don't know how much that guy's training, what kind of lifestyle that guy's living, what kind of gear that guy may or may not be taking, like all of the other things. And so you think you as a regular dude, like, I want to bench 405, like such and such on Instagram does it. Well, are you willing and able to like do the things that are required to get there? Right? And this is where that proper goal setting comes in, because maybe you can't, you're not willing to do it. You could, but you're not willing to do that. Right. And you got to just give that up. But this is the hard part of deciphering between like what's real and like what's actually achievable. Right.
Right. Well, that's the grown up stuff. Like if you're grown up age with grown up hair, you got to make some tough decisions. It's not strictly performance based. Like it goes for physique also. Like if you wanted to be 225 with a 6-pack, but you're 48 years old and you're 180 with love handles, like you're not going to be 225 with a 6-pack, because it just metabolism and the time it takes to put on that size, and like you said, all the steps necessary to get there, it's not feasible. It's not realistic.
Yeah. I think maybe not realistic is probably a better term than not feasible, because it probably is possible. But like, are you willing to put in the amount of training? Well, are you willing to, not go to your kids' soccer games? Are you willing to like, leave early from work and maybe not get a promote? Like there's a lot of things you're going to have to give up to maybe have to go do that. And you're probably, I would hope, like if that was the things that you're giving up to like, be 225 and have a 6-pack when you're 60 years old, like it's probably not worth it. I'm not 60 years old, so I've never been there to say, what or what isn't, but like, I'd bet that it's not worth it.
I am also not 60 years old, and it's not worth it. But no, that's a great point. Yes, it's about realistic goal setting. Is always what it has to tie back to.
Yeah, and again, just it's understanding and asking the question. I think of like, because you don't know. Like I met a guy this weekend at a conference who bench presses 1,000 pounds, and like he probably weighed 2.5. Now I'm not a very big guy, so it's not like that much, but he probably weighed 2.5 times as much as I do. He had crazy shoulders, like crazy bad shoulders, like couldn't even, like no mobility. Like I don't know if he could bend over and tie his shoes, but he benches 1,000 pounds. And so if you don't know any better and you just hear that, and I'm like, hey, I want to bench 1,000 pounds. He's a human being. I'm a human. I guess I could do that too. Like, what am I? But I'm not willing to increase my body weight by 2.5 times. I'm not willing to, train that much and take whatever he takes and do the things that he does. And so it's hard though. You got to I think it's about asking questions, right? And when it comes back to like this whole information overload, if you don't seek to go and ask the questions to figure out, well, what do I actually need to get that thing done? That should maybe be the first question that a lot of people ask themselves is like, okay, I want this goal. I want to look like such and such actor, actress. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean to do that? What do I actually have to do to get that done? And then you can answer the question of, am I willing and able to do that? But
right. Well,
difficult to
that's
get.
basic goal setting. That's smart goal setting. SMART, the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time based. That's how you set a good goal that you can reach. You have to check off all 5 of those boxes. If you can't check off all 5 of those boxes, it's an inappropriate goal, right?
Do you think that there's any other like aspect of life or any field where people set as unrealistic goals as they do in fitness? Like, I don't think people really set out to be like, I'm going to make $5 million next year if your current salary is like, 20K.
Right.
Like, but people are like, I'm going to have a 6-pack and be, 9% body fat, and I'm currently 47% body fat. By next year, like, I'm going to be on stage. Like, I feel like that is way more relevant or frequent than like other crazy areas of life where people are setting like
athletics,
way too ambitious goals.
Athletics in general. Like I could be a major league player. I just, I need to brush up my swing and, whatever. But it's like, because you see the professionals and they make it look so easy, but it's not because it's easy. It's because they're that good. And they've spent that much time getting that good.
It's my favorite part of watching the Olympics is thinking like, I could probably do that.
Totally do that.
See some obscure sport that like I don't even know anything about it. It's like, I probably could do that. How hard can it be? Look at this guy doing it. It's so easy. It makes it look so easy.
Yeah.
And then, it's fun to say that. But obviously you couldn't. Although I think for some of those sports, because there's just not enough people doing them, I think if you had enough time to train, like here's a thought that I had. I think if you had like 8 years to train, assuming you were like sufficiently healthy and sufficiently or like young enough, if you had like 8 to 10 years to train from your 16 and you had unlimited funds, I think almost anyone could make the Olympics. I know that those are 2 huge caveats. It's not realistic at all. But to say like pick a sport, like you'll find a sport that's like suited to your body, and you have unlimited funds to train and hire coaches and whatever. Like your genetics are not the problem; it's your circumstances that are the issue. Is maybe the point of what my thought there.
I think you can make leaps and bounds with like the 10,000 hour rule. Put the 10,000 hour rule on steroids. That's what you're doing, and then you make the Olympics. That's fine.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I think it's realistic. I mean, it's not realistic to do, but I think if it was possible to like do that experiment, I think pretty much anyone could make something if you wanted to.
Sure.
But again, why would you? Maybe you don't want to, because like
but
you spend your whole life trying to make the Olympics just to like.
Just say
you win a gold medal, and I guess it's cool. But then what? You got to get just like a regular job after that.
But it's why we do any of these things. Why we set any goals? It's personal glory.
Right.
Like, why is the guy bench 1,000 pounds? Because he wanted to.
Because he can.
So he can now. However long ago he decided he wanted to, and he took all the steps to get there. So, but
have you found that to be a useful part of training, just for like maybe older people, or people who are starting to age, where you have something to aim at, something to pursue outside of like work, and like it's a physical, personal thing where you have pretty much most of the control over, and it's like, hey, I can like pursue this goal, and that's a helpful thing. Have you found that to be like an external big positive for people in their training?
I think so. It seems to be, because it's an outlet. It's a psychological outlet. Like a lot of times I'll ask clients, are you in the gym to achieve a goal? Are you in the gym just to vent after a stressful workday? Are you in the gym just to play? Like that'll affect programming. That'll affect how hard they actually want to push, and it'll affect everything. So yeah, it's you can get a lot out of the gym that's not physique based or performance based. So there's some psychological benefits. There's some emotional support benefits and mental health benefits. Just trying something hard and straining and overcoming.
I'd almost go so far as to say is like most people think that they want the physical benefits, but they don't really. Like you need a very small amount of physical benefit as far as like body composition to feel better about yourself. And that's really what you want. Like people say they want to get like super shredded, but like you just want to lose like 10, 15 pounds. And like, to get under 10%, maybe you got to lose 40 pounds. But you just want to lose a little bit, and then you're happy, and you're feeling good because your body feels good, and you're progressing in the gym, and like that's, you don't know it, but that's really what you want. And I would go as far as to say that.
I think I've probably seen more women freak out happily by getting their first full push-up than by getting like a physique change. Just because push-ups are hard. Push-ups, there's girl push-ups and boy push-ups, like, which is not a thing, whatever. But when women get their first legit, like, hands and toes on the ground, full range push up, they freak out. They're like, I fucking did it. And that seems to jazz them up more than like, oh, I got some like arm definition.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
so
Because
that,
it's
and
way more
to,
measurable.
Yes. And it's great to see. Yeah.
It is. Because you think like, we put all these numbers in our head, right? And we don't know what they necessarily mean. So someone says, I want to lose 15 pounds. And you lose 15 pounds, and the scale shows that you lost 15 pounds. But then you're like, I still, like, it just, that wasn't it. Didn't hit it. Let me lose 15 more pounds. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we're putting these, like, goals, and it's nice to have that numerical goal on the scale. Like, it matters and all that stuff. But, like, it's not really what you want. It's not that objective, maybe, right, is the better term, versus getting your first push-up is like, I couldn't do this, and now I can. Mm-hmm. And like, that's it. And that's very easily to celebrate and a very easy thing to be able to do. And it seems simple. And I think people often get down on themselves that they can't do a push-up or can't do a pull-up.
Right.
But I think as trainers, we know that, the average number of pull-ups and push-ups that like the average person walking around out there can do is zero.
Yeah.
Or pretty close to zero. And so being able to do one is like, it's a pretty big deal.
It is, and it should be. that's the kind of stuff that should be celebrated. Like, celebrate your wins. There's nothing wrong with that. You totally should. So,
yeah. It's almost like, because everyone knows about push-ups and pull-ups, like, it's a pretty, I'd say, wide-known exercise. If you ask the person on the street what a pendulum squat is, like, they don't, I don't know. It's nothing in their brain. But I was like, could you do a pull-up? Yeah, probably. I used to do pull-ups in high school. That was, 30 years ago. And so it's like, hey, well, maybe we can work towards this again, right? So it matters a lot. And just like, I think it's just the whole feeling empowered, the mental health thing, which is just as big, if not bigger, than all of the physical stuff in the gym at any age, when you're younger or as you age, and all the way right through.
Oh, for sure. Because the physique stuff will come. Like, that was the thing back in the early 1900s. It was train for strength and size will come. Like, if you train for performance, train to move well, then your body will accidentally start looking better. Mm-hmm. And the reverse isn't always true.
This is true. Now the piece that ties us in is nutrition. So I know that you have a pretty solid, like, base thought on what nutrition comes down to. So share that with us. Because yes, training for performance will, like, inadvertently make you look better and all that stuff. But if you somehow manage to, like, eat 5,000 calories of McDonald's every single day while you were chasing performance, like, you probably wouldn't look, your performance would improve, but like, you wouldn't look better. So like, right. Now I doubt that someone would do that, but how does nutrition kind of make it, tie this all together?
Well, it does. It's the hardest part. Like, ask any bodybuilder, ask any athlete. The hardest part is not the workout. It's the 23 hours, 17 hours if you're not sleeping, of, like, what you eat and what you don't eat, and when you eat and when you don't eat. Like, diet is well, first, there's nothing wrong with the word diet. Like, people get stressed out about, oh, you shouldn't call it a diet because that sounds like a temporary. Diet is what you eat. So nutrition plan is a little wordy. Like, your diet is whatever. So set up your diet to something you can stick to. Like, maybe you're a macro tracker. Maybe you're going to figure out how much this piece of chicken weighs. You're going to track your numbers. Maybe that's too much and that'll stress you out. So you do more of an intuitive thing. You're like, I need a piece of meat and a bunch of veggies at each meal, and as few grains as possible. Maybe that's your approach. Like, again, it's trial and error. See what your personality and your mindset will stick with. And again, just like in training, a lot of different stuff works. Like, keto works, carnivore works, like all the Atkins works. People still do Atkins, right?
I think so.
Sure.
It's branded differently.
Yeah, right. So all different approaches. See what will stick with. See what you'll stick with. What works for you. Again, what works for your daily schedule. Like, I eat generally 2 meals a day because it's just easier for me. I know if I chew gum, it kills my appetite. So if I get hungry, I chew some gum. All right, whatever. Problem solved. But that doesn't work for everybody. I don't recommend that for everybody. So you figure out what works for you and what you'll stick with, and that's what will yield the best long-term results.
So much easier said than done, though. I mean,
sure.
Like, the problem with nutrition is, like, that almost everything does work, like you were just saying. but they work for different people. Like,
Right.
I think a numbers thing that we've got to also remember here is like, there's 8 billion people in the world. Like, that leaves a lot of opportunities for various things that work for very large numbers of people. Like, if some diet helps 100 million people lose weight, that's still a very small percentage of people that are out there. However, it's a large number of people, 100 million. That's a significant amount of people. And so you think, well, it helped 100 million people. It must be the right way. Well, there were 7.9 billion people that it didn't help. So which way are we gonna look at it here? And so it really does come down to trial and error. So it's like, I think it's evaluate the information, think about which one of these things sounds like good to me, and then more or less like do that one, or at least give it a run and see what happens, because that's the only way you're going to find out. No one can ever say the exact right thing that works for you. And I think any good coach already says this. People have their preferred ways, like the way that works for you, because it works for you. And so it's easier for you to communicate that, right? And same for me. I have the things that I do that work for me, and it's easier for me to communicate that because I experience those exact things. But I could also coach someone who does the exact opposite of me. And because, my way is not the only way. There's lots of ways. This is just, we know the base principles, and then we know how to manipulate all the variables.
Well, that's the word you just hit, principles. You look at the common denominator to the stuff that works. It's protein-rich foods, mainly animal proteins. It's fruits and veggies. It's, if not tracking, at least being aware of your overall calorie intake and knowing how to adjust that. Like, does that mean less olive oil when you cook? Does that mean smaller serving of rice? So check the bigger principles that you can pull out from the successful stuff. One thing that I like is cook more. Like, cook more for yourself. It was Michael Pollan, like a food journalist, had a tip one time that any junk food you want, anytime you want a cheat meal, cook it yourself. Because if you only ate French fries when you cooked them from scratch, you wouldn't eat too many French fries. If you only ate cake when you baked it from scratch, not out of a box, you wouldn't have cake too often. So the more you cook for yourself, like, the better, generally.
And even when you did make those things, they would probably be, I was going to say better for you, but I want to say less calorie dense than like the store-bought fast food versions of those things. Like, better for you is such a term up for debate. Like, what does that even mean, better for you? Like, it's just less calories is the thing that's going to control the weight manipulation there. But to the other side of that is like, maybe it doesn't scratch the itch. Like, one thing that I can't get behind is like these protein-rich, healthy desserts. Like,
I just saw one the other day, sweet potato brownies. Like,
there you go. Like, give me a break. Like, get out of my face with that. Like, that's not. There's no one is ever going to convince me that tastes just as good, and you'll never know the difference. Like, please, we all know the difference. Like, I get it. You're being calorie conscious. Like, cool. But there is a point where it's like, hey, maybe just like have the real thing, but just have a little bit of it, and not that often, and that's okay too, right? Like, you can't be, trying to include brownies in your day-to-day diet is probably not a good solution, even if it's like a healthy version of it. I think there's a lot of psychological impact with that as well. But you have a brownie once a week, once every other week, and it's like really delicious and you enjoy it, I think that's fine. And as long as you're not having a whole tray of brownies, you're having a little bit, probably good. Probably fine with that.
Yeah, well, and again, that ties into your personality. Like, are you the person that should not buy peanut butter and have it in the house because you'll eat the jar? There's people like that. They can't purchase it. That's a solution, which is fine. If that works for you, do that. If you eat,
I have a friend who sent himself to the hospital because of eating too much peanut butter.
Yeah.
It was I don't remember what exactly happened. I'd have to ask him for what the story was, but he basically had it at, like, he was going through some binge eating and some eating disordered eating, if you will, and he just kind of like went to town on a jar of peanut butter, no crackers, no bread, just like spoon peanut butter. And sent himself to the hospital because of it. And then that was like a thing, like, hey, I just can't have peanut butter in the house anymore because for whatever reason, I just like, I get into that mood, I get, whatever, and I just can't do it. And so it's a shitty thing to go through, obviously, and a tough way to like learn that lesson. But you got to know what those triggers are for you and then get rid of them.
Definitely. It's, people are like that with alcohol or cigarettes or whatever.
Sure.
Like, just don't buy it. Don't tempt yourself. If Ben and Jerry's is on sale 2 for $4, that's not a good reason to get 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's.
Right.
It's a good reason. It actually is. But that's the thing. So do the principles. Don't cheat yourself out of, like, if you're gonna indulge it responsibly, kind of.
Right. And enjoy it guilt free. That's what I always say. It's like, if you're gonna have a cheat meal, like, plan to have that. Don't let it happen by accident. Like, do it. Like, don't half-ass things. Like, whole ass your cheat meal. Like, do the thing, enjoy it, and that way there's no guilt associated with it, and then you move right back onto the plan. The guilt comes in when it's like, I was trying to be healthy today, and then, Susie brought these cupcakes into the office, and they weren't even good, but I had 3 of them, and I feel like shit now.
Right. Well,
that sucks.
I see that with the big thing. I see that is with, like, Thanksgiving and holidays. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be the guy who just has the white meat turkey and with green beans and nothing else that your family cooked at the family table, you're a dipstick. You're missing the point. Like, you can and should enjoy Thanksgiving with your family. You're not a bodybuilder. You don't have a contest the next day.
Yeah.
So way too many people stress out about, like, stuff that genuinely doesn't matter.
Yeah. And again, it's all like, when we talk about it like this, I think it sounds really obvious. Like, yeah, you're right. Thanksgiving is not the day that I should stress out. I should be able to just enjoy pumpkin pie and gravy and stuffing and as much volume as I want and all the things. Like, that's not the day. Like, I've got 364 other days to worry about what I'm eating. Like, why am I going to worry about it on Thanksgiving? But in the moment, it's tough. It's tough. Right. And I think it's almost a reflection of, like, because you haven't been paying attention, and then that you're going to kind of like overdo it on Thanksgiving, then you feel worse about it, versus, like, if you've been kind of dialed in, you feel like, yeah, Thanksgiving's my cheat meal. Like, I'm good. I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to get right back on track on Monday morning.
Well, that's
no harm, no foul.
One of my favorite sayings is Alan Cosgrove, one of my favorite best coaches of all time, says, what you eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas is less important than what you eat between Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Very true.
That's it.
Now, that is also a uniquely American saying, because the Thanksgiving to Christmas is like a little bit less. So you've got a month or so there. So Canadians take that with a grain of salt, please, because our Thanksgiving to Christmas is a little bit longer. So you could do some damage in 2.5 months. But the principle of what you're saying, yes, is correct. The majority of the time that you're eating is what matters, not the couple of holidays sprinkled through the year. And there's always going to be something, right? There's birthdays, there's Easter, there's whatever. There's always stuff that's happening every couple of weeks, every couple of months. And so it doesn't mean that you only have a cheat meal on Thanksgiving or on Christmas. Right. It means that when you have something to celebrate and food is part of that celebration, by all means, go ahead, because you're not a bodybuilder. You don't have a competition coming up. You're just a regular person, and that's great. But the rest of the time, when there's nothing to be celebrated and there's no reason to have 3 cupcakes just because they're lying around, maybe if you want to lose weight, build muscle, whatever, have some physique goals, have some fitness goals, have some health goals, probably the time to say no to that is when there's nothing to celebrate and nothing else going on.
For sure. And that's just sticking to your guns. Just self-control, self-discipline, self-respect, I guess, ties into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, easier said than done, though. But hopefully this gives people, like, enough just ammo kind of for yourself to take that second to pause, to think about what you're doing and evaluate your goals and maybe your beliefs about fitness, about nutrition, and about these things, and ask the questions. Like, find good people and ask the questions. Like, there's plenty of people, Chris and I, I'll speak for you, Chris, but, like, we're happy to help answer questions, because it's hard to navigate all of this stuff, and it's not your fault that you don't know all the answers, but it is your fault to be responsible for your body, and that's a good thing. And so, you gotta go out of your way to seek the answers, unfortunately.
Yep. That's what it is. If you're asking questions, get the answers and vet the answers.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to chat about today before we close this off?
No, I'm good. No, I think we covered a lot of ground that hopefully sinks in and people get some good takeaways. I think we did good.
Yeah, that is always the goal. Well, thank you very much. I think we did give people some pretty solid, tangible advice. I mean, I'd definitely encourage people to go back and listen to the part about the full body workouts and the supersets, because that's something that is, like, just being around gyms. Like people are not really doing that, and it's a game changer for just getting your workouts in a more time efficient manner and getting actually like more bang for your buck, which is not, it's not really a monetary exchange, but more efficiency in your workout, I guess. So yeah, go back and listen to that and actually implement it. So anyways, Chris, thank you so much. Where can people get in contact with you? What's your contact info? And is there anything that you have coming up that you want to let people know about it?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's at chriscolucci.ny, because I'm the New York one. Any trainers out there that want some help with your training business, getting some writing going, because I have the editorial and writing background, you can find me at The Right Spotters, WRITE. Do some writing consulting there. And that's it. Those are two best places. Thank you.
Awesome. So it's The Right Spotters, right?
The Right Spotters, yep.
Awesome. And chriscolucci.ny
Yep.
on Instagram, I guess. Is Chris Colucci a common name? I don't know anyone else named Chris Colucci.
There's a couple.
Colucci is a common last name. Here where I am, there's a lot of Italian people as well as like Long Island. So, but yeah.
There's a couple around. That's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Chris, thank you so much.
I really
appreciate you. Of course. I'll have your contact info in the show notes for everyone to get access to, and give Chris send him a message, give him a follow, all those things if you need help with anything. And that's that. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, rating, reviews, all those good things. Helps the show grow and helps get the good information out there in the information soup that we are dealing with. Go outside, be a good person. We'll see you next time.